Hi, I'm Ardelia. My parents told the world I stepped away from the company for my mental health, but I never asked to leave. I was erased, quietly, cleanly. They gave my title to my sister, scrubbed my name from every record, and rewrote our history as if I never existed. But the worst part? They groomed me for years, then used everything I built to replace me. Now I have to ask, how do you fight back when the people who raised you become your enemies? They told me it would be a big day, that after years of loyalty, long nights, and bailing out every mess the family left behind, this meeting would be mine. The official announcement, my seat as heir to the company, would finally be acknowledged. No more quiet contributions. No more standing behind the curtain while others accepted the applause. It was the first week of January, a cold Asheville morning, the kind that forces you to breathe deeper just to feel alive. The boardroom was full. Familiar faces, local partners, a few community leaders, people I had grown up shaking hands with, calling uncle or aunt, even though they weren't related. I took my usual seat near the head of the table, careful not to seem too eager, though every bone in my body buzzed. The projector warmed up. The first slide appeared. COO transition, welcoming the next generation of leadership. My name was there, bold, centered, beneath the company logo. It felt right, even if just for a moment. Then came the interruption. Warren, my father, cleared his throat. Sorry, folks, slight update. He clicked the remote. The slide changed. My name disappeared. Sable. It stared back at me in the same font, the same size, but it wasn't mine. People shifted in their seats. A few looked toward me. Others avoided eye contact altogether. My mother, Vera, smiled at the room like nothing had happened, her fingers folded calmly on the polished table, eyes locked on the screen. No one said a word. I didn't either. The applause came anyway, weak at first, then polite, then enthusiastic. I couldn't hear it over the static in my head. My hands were still on the table, folded like hers, frozen. Later that night, I sat in my apartment, still in my suit. I hadn't even taken off my heels. My inbox pinged. A message from HR. Board approved, extended personal leave. The body of the email read like a resignation I never wrote. According to them, I'd requested time off for mental health reasons. The message was, being honored in full support of Ardelia's well-being. The lie was swift, clean, cruel. Within an hour, my phone filled with messages from colleagues and distant relatives. Take care of yourself. So brave of you to prioritize mental health. We'll miss you at the office. Rest up. Like I had vanished willingly. They didn't just cut me out. They replaced me, then told everyone I asked for it. I stared at the screen until the backlight blurred. The tears never fell. Not then. Not yet. A few days earlier, my mother had leaned across the kitchen island, her voice warm like honey. You've held this place together. Your stability is what this company needs. Your time is coming, sweetheart. She'd said it with one hand on mine, and the other stirring coffee, as if she believed it. As if I should. Now I understood. The grooming hadn't been for me. It had been to keep me still. I scrolled through our last presentation deck, the one I created, filled with ideas that now bore Sable's name. The vision I built for the next decade of growth? Stripped, rebranded, handed over with a smile. I texted Noreen, the only colleague I considered a real friend. No reply. My social feed was sterile. No drama, no shock. Just smiling posts about Sable's return to lead with passion and family values at the heart of our business. The silence hurt more than the betrayal. I wasn't mourning a role. I was mourning my existence being wiped clean. That night, the apartment felt smaller than usual. I sat on the floor, laptop open, old emails and files glowing in front of me like ghosts. Every file name, every deck, every note, mine. But out there, in the world, I was already gone. I hovered over the presentation file again, the deck that was supposed to be mine. I clicked it open. Slide 1. Leadership Evolution, Building the Future Together. I stared at the title until my vision narrowed. If this was war, then they just made their first move. They gave her the crown, but they carved it from my bones. I whispered those words to myself as I stared at my reflection in the glass door of the company I used to help run. Behind it, a vinyl banner hung just beyond the lobby. Golden cursive letters celebrating a new chapter begins. Sable's face was centered beneath the text. Mine was nowhere to be found. A week earlier, I'd watched the live stream of the company's leadership relaunch from the worn couch in my apartment, my laptop perched on my knees. No one invited me, no one warned me. I found the event only because the algorithm decided I might be interested in a company I used to serve. There they were, all the usual suspects: board members, old partners, staffers I'd hired and mentored. The camera panned across the crowd, landing on Vera and Warren, beaming like proud royalty. Then came the moment. Sable walked onto the stage like she'd been born to do it. Hairstyled, posture perfect, voice steady. She was wearing the navy sheath dress I once advised her to buy for interviews. And she was reading from a speech I had written, word for word. Legacy is not inherited. It is earned through persistence and vision. I felt my jaw tighten, but I couldn't look away. The company's Instagram exploded with hashtags: your second chances, sheer family first, legacy in motion. Photos of Sable smiling, her arm around Warren, her hand in Vera's. The caption beneath one image read, "The heart of the company has returned home." I closed the laptop, but the silence in the room pressed on me like a weight. Later that night, I couldn't sleep. Something in me itched, burned. I grabbed my phone and went to the company website. At first, I thought I had made a mistake. Maybe I was on the wrong page. Then I found it. The Our Founders section had been rewritten. My name was gone, scrubbed, erased. In its place was a quote: "I've always believed in leading with integrity," attributed to Sable. I stared at the screen. My pulse slowed. My chest didn't ache. It felt vacant. I dialed Luther. The line rang, then voicemail. I didn't leave a message. Instead, I opened my old archives, newsletters I'd edited, blogs I'd written, the social campaigns I had built from the ground up, all either removed or retagged under her name. It wasn't just a demotion, it was annihilation. They weren't just rewriting the present, they were editing the past. That was the night I started saving screenshots, not for nostalgia, for evidence. A few days passed. I waited for Vera to call, for Warren to text, even Sable to offer some half-baked explanation. But my phone stayed quiet, until I received a forwarded email from an old friend still working there. It was from Vera. "Thank you to everyone for the incredible support this past month. We are thrilled to welcome back the real heart of our business, our daughter, Sable." I read it twice. I'm your daughter too. But the silence was louder than any correction she could have sent. I stayed in bed the rest of that day, not because I was broken, but because I needed to feel what they'd done without distractions. I needed the burn to settle deep enough so I wouldn't forget. They thought I'd slink away, embarrassed, erased. Instead, I got up, dressed, and drove. I parked across the street from the building I used to walk into every morning before sunrise. I stood there for 10 minutes, unmoving. The sun had just started its descent, casting long shadows across the brick walls. I approached the glass door. Sable's face on that banner smiled at me, polished, confident, rehearsed. I looked down at my reflection beneath hers. Faded, slightly warped by the angle of the glass. They gave her the crown, but they carved it from my bones. They buried me in silence. I'll rise in records. It was late February when I first walked into the downtown library again, the rain outside tapping the tall glass windows like it wanted to be let in. The place smelled the same: dust, old paper, that odd lemony cleaner they always overused. This library had hosted my proudest public exhibit once, a tribute to local businesswomen who built their names without marrying into them. My face had been on that wall back then, smiling, standing next to the family logo I helped redesign. Today, that display was gone. In its place, a wall of donors, with names etched in gold beneath polished plaques. The company's plaque remained, but the bio had changed. Spearheaded by Sable, whose strategic leadership elevated the company's role in community development. I stood there, umbrella dripping, reading those lines over and over until the words lost meaning. No mention of me, not one. Later that evening, while I sipped lukewarm coffee from a chipped mug in my apartment, a video popped up in my inbox, forwarded by an old college friend who hadn't realized how loaded it would be. "Thought you'd enjoy this blast from the past," she wrote. It was a professionally edited recap of the company's 30th anniversary gala. Music swelling, champagne glasses raised, close-ups of smiling interns, a wide angle of Warren giving a toast with Vera standing proud by his side. Sable took the mic, laughing about finding her way back to where she always belonged. Everyone was there, everyone but me. The camera panned across a photo collage on display at the event. In it were vendor handshakes, ribbon cuttings, award nights. I remembered that collage. I had built the timeline, selected every photo, ensured every detail was authentic. They had remade it. I was nowhere. In the background of the video, I caught a guest whispering to someone beside them, "Wasn't she part of this?" That question echoed in my mind long after the video ended. I couldn't sleep. I searched for the article I'd once seen featured on a regional business site, the one that covered our early growth phase. After a few clicks, I found it. The headline, "The Faces Behind a Family Empire." A full-page spread, photos, quotes, brand colors I had helped choose. And there it was, the group shot I had arranged 3 years ago, standing on the grand staircase of our main office, staff lined up by seniority. I remembered directing the photographer to take it from a slight angle to catch the gold plaque behind us. In the version I now stared at, the angle was cropped. I was gone. Sable was centered. The caption below read, "Company leadership, driven forward by Sable's renewed vision." I didn't feel angry. I didn't cry. I just sat very, very still. This wasn't disappointment anymore. It was grief. Not the kind you wail over at funerals, but the kind you carry in your chest like an unanswered question. They didn't just take the company. They were unmaking me. I whispered to the silence, "If they want a ghost, I'll show them what a ghost can do." I stood up, turned on every light in the apartment, and opened my laptop. Every drive, every folder, every receipt. I began screenshotting everything I had ever touched in the company. Campaign emails, initial logo drafts, pitch documents, memos with my edits. By morning, I had organized them into folders labeled by year. Then I bought a new hard drive. I named the master folder Proof of Life. I started reading case studies, copyright cases, IP theft, internal fraud. The more I read, the more I realized how much they had left behind in their rush to replace me. 1 week later, I printed that staircase group photo, the one they had published without me. I took a penknife from the drawer and sliced around the space where I had stood. My hands were steady. I pinned it to the corkboard above my desk. Then I circled Sable's face with a red marker. They buried me in silence. I'll rise in records. I stopped expecting cake a long time ago. March drifted in without notice, and with it, another birthday I didn't mark. No text from Vera. No stiff voicemail from Warren. Not even a passive-aggressive meme from Sable. The calendar flipped, the day passed, and I spent it walking laps around Pack Square Park under a gray sky that looked just as tired as I felt. A child's birthday party was underway on the lawn, balloons tied to a picnic table, bright frosting smeared across tiny cheeks. A man with a red paper crown bent down to whisper in his daughter's ear, and she laughed loud enough to echo off the courthouse wall. I stood by a bench and watched until my coffee went cold. I don't think I blinked. Later that week, the weather cleared. I went to the community fair out of habit more than desire. I walked past a booth selling handmade jams when I spotted her. Sable's daughter, my niece. She was with her school group, maybe third or fourth grade by now. She recognized me. Her eyes widened, then narrowed. I took one step forward, just enough to show I wasn't hiding. But before I could open my mouth, she said, "Mom told me not to talk to you." I stopped. "She said you used to work for Grandma, but did something bad, that you're not supposed to come around anymore." My throat tightened, but I nodded. "Okay," I said gently. "I understand." She tilted her head. "Did you do something bad?" I wanted to say, "I built that company." I wanted to say, "Ask your mother what she's afraid of." But instead, I smiled, just barely. "Not in the way you think." I walked away before my hands started shaking. By Friday, I had a lunch meeting scheduled with a former partner I'd brought into the company years ago. She had recently launched a green tech startup, and we'd exchanged emails about potential collaboration. 10 minutes before our reservation, she canceled. No explanation, just a text. "Can't make it today. Sorry." I waited an hour anyway, sitting by the window of the cafe, watching people pass by. Then I called. She answered with a sigh. "Ardelia, I didn't want to say anything, but Vera reached out, said it might not be professional to associate, that you're in a fragile place right now." "Fragile?" "She said you'd been struggling, that you're unstable." I swallowed hard, pressing the phone tighter against my ear. "Thank you for your honesty." "I'm sorry, I really am." I ended the call, left cash on the table, walked to my car, and slammed the door harder than I meant to. Then I screamed. It wasn't loud, it wasn't violent. It was the kind of scream that presses against your lungs like a second set of ribs, desperate to crack through. I hit record on my phone. My voice was calm, flat, cold. They didn't just cut me out. They're cutting me down, replacing me in public, erasing me in private, and now poisoning anyone who dares take my call. I paused, staring at my own reflection in the rearview mirror. Stop mourning. Start moving. That night, I sat at my desk and opened a new document titled Final Boundary. I wrote one page. If you continue using my work, erasing my name, or weaponizing your silence, I will respond. Not with emotion, not with rage. With evidence. You've had your fun. This ends now. I didn't send it, but I printed it, folded it once, slid it into a folder marked Legal. As the rain returned, I drove through winding streets back home. The city lights blurred on the windshield, but I didn't slow down. The silence in the car wasn't peaceful. It buzzed with new electricity. Pulling into the garage, I left the engine running for a moment. My fingers wrapped around the steering wheel, knuckles pale. Then I cut the ignition, opened the driver's side door, and walked inside. I dropped my bag, poured a glass of water, sat down at my desk, clicked open a folder labeled Case Preparation. They've had their fun. Now it's my turn to be loud in the quiet. So, by the first Saturday of April, I had stopped checking the mailbox with any real expectation. Still, something about ritual kept me doing it. Walking barefoot to the gate, flipping through the stack of coupons and local flyers, as if there might be a slim envelope tucked between the junk. There wasn't. Again. No card from Vera. No surprise apology from Warren. Not even a crooked signature from Sable, pretending to be nice for appearance's sake. Just silence, like always. But I didn't feel the sting this time. They've chosen their narrative. Now I'll write mine. Later that morning, I drove out to the nursing home where Luther was staying. The drive wound through roads I knew too well, ones I used to take on weekends when we'd grab coffee and talk shop, long before his health started to fade. He looked thinner, frailer, but when I stepped into his room, his eyes lit up with clarity. "Still standing?" he asked. "Not just standing," I said, sitting beside him. "Watching, recording." He reached for a leather-bound notebook, resting on the tray by his bed. His hand shook, but he held it with purpose. "I kept this for you," he said. "Meeting notes, my memos, and this. Inside, I found it. An original document bearing his signature. One I hadn't seen before. It granted me strategic authority to make key decisions during a transitional leadership period. The ink had faded, but the date and name were unmistakable. I should have stepped in earlier, he added, voice low, but now you have what you need. I didn't say thank you. I didn't need to. Tears welled up anyway, slipping down my cheek without fanfare. He didn't try to comfort me, just sat with me in the quiet, giving me the dignity of not filling the space with platitudes. That night, Destry showed up at my door. He'd been distant for weeks, canceled dinners, ignored texts, vague promises about busy season. Still, part of me hoped. Not for a grand gesture, just presence. He stood in the entryway like a guest, not a partner. This is too much, he said. All of it, the lawsuit talk, the tension. I didn't sign up to be in a war. I leaned against the wall and crossed my arms. No, you signed up for the version of me who kept her head down. I didn't mean it like that. Didn't you? He looked away. I didn't ask you to fight, I said. I just asked you not to disappear. He nodded once. Maybe I'm not strong enough for this. I opened the door wider. Then maybe you were never in it for the woman I am. He didn't argue. The door clicked shut behind him. And with it, another silence. But this one felt clean. Necessary. The next morning, I drove along the Blue Ridge Parkway, windows cracked, spring air slicing through the cabin. It wasn't a vacation. It wasn't escape. It was declaration. I didn't stop at overlooks or picnic spots. I just let the turns carve out the noise in my head. I started rewriting the rules. Rule 1, I no longer needed to earn their love. Rule 2, I would no longer protect people who weaponized my decency. Rule 3, I would speak when I chose, not when I was permitted. Back at home, I sat at the kitchen table and opened a new document. Notice of intent. It wasn't an email. It was a letter. Formal, factual, free of emotional bait. 2. Warren Ellis, Vera Ellis, Sable Ellis. Unauthorized use of proprietary content, strategic frameworks, branding language developed under my direction during active tenure as COO. I outlined everything. Dates, evidence, screenshots. I didn't plead. I didn't justify. I warned. If misuse continued, if my name remained absent from rightful credit, if they continued their campaign of silence and shadow, they would see the response. I didn't send it, not yet. I saved the document as a PDF, printed one copy, folded it, and pinned it next to Luther's signed document on my corkboard. 2 signatures, 2 truths. Next time they erase me, I'll respond with ink and evidence. Mid-April rolled in damp and quiet. The days were getting longer, but my nights were growing heavier. I spent most evenings in the garage workspace I'd turned into my war room. A corkboard stretched across one wall, cluttered with printed emails, contracts, screen captures, and sticky notes that read like case files. I'd stopped calling it a workspace weeks ago. Now it was what it truly was. A launch pad. That night, I opened the small fireproof safe bolted beneath my tool bench. Inside, nestled between notarized agreements and backup drives, was Luther's signed document. I placed it carefully in the center, added a new copy just printed, and locked it shut. Now it's not just grief, it's litigation. I turned back to my desk, pulled up the scanned version of Luther's agreement, the one confirming my authorship and strategic rights over the branding model that built our company's public face. The legal timestamp predated every campaign Vera and Sable had claimed credit for. At the same time, a press release from the company's PR team had been circulating. A proprietary brand identity crafted internally by Sable Ellis, our visionary leader. I read the sentence 3 times, then I printed it. The contradiction wasn't subtle. It was a lawsuit waiting to be filed. My computer chimed, a reminder I'd set days earlier. I opened the audio file and pressed play. It was short, grainy, but I didn't need clarity to recognize the voice. If we let her back in, she'll take everything. She's smarter than Sable, than all of us. Warren had said that. My own father. Not in anger, but in strategy. It wasn't fear, it was calculation. I created a transcript, checked it twice, then attached both the audio and text to an email. The subject line was short, Stage 1, Documentation. I sent it to a private attorney I'd met through a friend in Richmond, one who specialized in corporate fraud and intellectual property cases. No emotion, just a folder full of receipts and a quiet declaration of war. By Friday, I was back on the phone, contacting a former marketing intern who'd helped me write the launch copy for a campaign 3 years ago. She still had her original drafts. She'd saved her pitch decks. She knew they'd been submitted under her name, but later released under Sable's. They just swapped the header and called it theirs, she said, sounding both embarrassed and angry. Would you be willing to write a statement? I asked. There was a pause. Then, yes. I began filing copyright registrations for every piece of content I had touched. Brand names, campaign slogans, core messaging templates. I went page by page, documenting what I'd created, what they had used, and when they'd tried to pretend I had never existed. It was tedious. It was exhausting. It was the most clarity I'd had in months. Finally, I opened the Notice of Intent letter again. No edits this time. I attached it to an email, addressed it to the family account we used for company communications, the same account they'd used to coordinate board meetings and annual reports. I hit send. No reply came, but the company website changed the next day. Quietly. No announcement. No apology. Just a soft deletion of the branding section I had developed from scratch. The logo now led to a 404, page not found. They weren't admitting guilt. They were cleaning up the trail. I didn't smile, not really. But there was something about the way they moved so quickly, so quietly, that told me everything I needed to know. Now they're nervous. That evening, as the sun dropped behind the trees, my phone buzzed. It was my attorney. We're ready if you are, he said. Just say the word. I closed my laptop slowly, stood in front of the mirror hanging above the desk, and took a breath. Let's begin. The envelope was already damp when I picked it up from the porch. It hadn't rained the night before, which meant it had been placed in the early hours. Quiet, intentional. No name on the front, just my address, written in shaky black ink. Inside, a single photograph. Grainy. Taken from a distance, maybe through tinted glass. It showed me sitting in a booth at the law firm 2 days ago, folder open, lips mid-sentence. Tucked behind the photo was a note. You'll regret dragging this family into mud. No name, no signature, just cowardice. I stood in my kitchen, kettle whistling behind me, the paper still clenched in my hand. The silence wasn't empty. It rang. That afternoon, while organizing files for my next filing round, a notification buzzed across my phone. My name was trending locally. I clicked through. A former coworker, Marla, had posted a thread accusing me of manipulative, emotionally hostile leadership. She claimed I ruled through guilt and passive aggression, and that she left the company because of my toxicity. Marla had been fired by Vera 3 years ago, not by me. Vera had accused her of leaking financial documents to an investor group, and I had spoken up on her behalf, even argued to keep her on the team until the investigation was complete. But the comments didn't know that. The story spread fast. I said nothing. 2 days later, I uploaded a short video. It was from our old security system at the office, one I still had access to at the time. The footage showed Marla in my office, crying. I was leaning forward, gently telling her, I don't think you did anything wrong. I think you're being made into a scapegoat. The camera angle was wide, the audio imperfect, but the tone was unmistakable. I wasn't accusing, I was defending. I let the footage speak. Within an hour, Marla deleted her post. 2 hours later, her account vanished. The public didn't cheer, they didn't apologize. But the silence shifted. Turns out the villain isn't her, someone commented. No one liked it, but it stayed up. That evening, my phone buzzed again. Noreen. I hadn't heard from her since the day I left the office. She sent a screenshot, an invoice, professional consultation with Ellis Legacy brand, signed by Sable. Her rate was higher than mine had ever been. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. No anger, just understanding. She hadn't been waiting. She'd already picked her side. They didn't abandon me because they were uncertain. They left because loyalty was profitable elsewhere. Vera released a press statement the next morning. A paragraph and a half, vague enough to feel benign. We respect the privacy of all parties. At this time, we're choosing not to engage in rumors and drama. Our focus remains on moving forward. I read it twice, then printed it. The tactic was familiar. Neutrality as a weapon. Dismissal dressed up as maturity. I opened a new blog post. The title came instantly. Silence is how they win. I didn't write about betrayal. I wrote about pattern, about how institutions erase voices by pretending not to hear them. That night, I sat with every file spread out across my garage table. Case documents, emails, audio transcripts. The corkboard had grown. I added a new page, Key Patterns of Public Gaslighting, voiceover in my head. This isn't defamation, it's a defense. I recorded a video, one camera, no music, just me, seated, reading facts. No blame, no emotion, just the truth. I uploaded it before sunrise. By noon, it had 3,000 views. Local blogs picked it up. One journalist emailed. Another asked for a quote. I didn't reply. I was already drafting the next move. A formal cease and desist. The first of many. They taught me to be polite. Now I'm teaching them to be honest. 2 weeks had passed since I released the video, and for the first time in months, I walked into a coffee shop and didn't shrink. I didn't keep my head down, didn't check behind me. I just stood in line. At a corner table, a trio of retirees chatted about gardening and city council meetings. Then, one of them lowered her voice and said, "You hear what happened at the Ellis Company? Turns out everything that girl said might be true." They didn't notice me, but for the first time, it didn't matter. I wasn't invisible anymore. I was untouchable, and not in the way they had tried to make me. When I got home, there was an email waiting, from Alton. I hadn't heard from him since he left the company. He had been a quiet assistant in the legal department, the kind of person people underestimated because he didn't make eye contact during meetings. But he always paid attention. The email was encrypted. The message was brief. "I figured you might need this someday." I backed it up before they wiped the server. Attached were 2 files. 1. A scanned PDF of the internal order Warren had signed, instructing the legal team to scrub my name from all legacy documents and branding ownership records. 2. A video clip showing Sable signing the same order, smiling. The timestamps were clear, the signatures were unmistakable, and the intent was damning. I didn't cry. I didn't tremble. I didn't even blink. I forwarded it to my lawyer with 3 words: time to file. Then I opened a browser tab, logged into the site I'd been quietly building for months, and hit publish. My own company, my own name. My first post went up, a breakdown of brand trust and ethics in leadership. I didn't name names. I didn't have to. It carried my voice, my proof, my perspective. No platforms shared it. No congratulatory emails landed in my inbox. But something did happen. The Ellis Company removed every article, image, or video that had ever featured my words or credited my designs. They didn't fight back. They tried to vanish the connection instead. I documented it all. Screenshots, date stamps, before and after comparisons. I sent them to my lawyer, who didn't reply with words, only a thumbs-up emoji and a PDF receipt. That night, we filed the lawsuit. 3 counts: intellectual property theft, defamation, and breach of contract. I posted 1 sentence online: "See you in court." The local newspaper picked it up by noon. By sundown, a dozen niche business blogs had dissected the documents, timelines, and statements like it was a Netflix true crime series. Warren's spokesperson issued a statement the next morning. We categorically deny all accusations. We maintain our commitment to transparency and ethical leadership. They were too late. By then, the documents were viral. So was the video. I didn't refresh the news. I didn't chase updates. I just drove. Back to the old office. Not inside, just to the parking lot, where the windows had been recently tinted and the signage looked newer, shinier. I walked to the front door and slid a manila envelope through the mail slot. Inside was one printed photo. The original team. Before the edits. Before the lies. I'd circled each person in red ink, everyone but me, and below it, in black marker, before erasure. Then I walked away. There were no reporters, no applause. Just me, stepping off the curb, shoes clicking against concrete. Outside the courthouse, days later, I met my lawyer for the first hearing. The air was thick with pollen and tension. I stepped onto the pavement, folder in hand, heels steady, chin up. Across the street, Vera stood beneath the shade of a flowering dogwood tree. She didn't wave. Neither did I. We just looked. They built an empire on my silence. I learned how to sharpen it. By mid-May, Asheville had already begun to shed the chill of spring. Dogwoods bloomed along sidewalks, and the courthouse steps no longer felt so cold under my heels. The air carried the scent of cut grass and the murmur of small talk. About weather, about gardening, about me. The local paper updated its coverage. My name appeared not in passing or implication, but plainly, Ardelia Ellis. Former COO wins IP settlement in dispute over brand authorship. They didn't call it a scandal this time. They called it a reckoning. Rumors floated like pollen. Warren and Vera were preparing to leave town. Their house on Montfort Avenue had been quietly listed. The building that once bore our family's name now had a temporary sign, awaiting new ownership. I passed it on my morning walk. The logo had faded under the sun. I didn't stop. The case never reached trial. My legal team moved quickly, and theirs folded quicker. They didn't want discovery. They didn't want depositions. They didn't want the public to hear Warren admit I was smarter than Sable on tape. So we settled. They issued a statement. Not an apology, just paperwork. It clarified my authorship of all disputed materials. It awarded me back credit on published works, and a financial figure high enough to open a door, but not enough to buy silence. They wanted the story to end, but I wasn't looking for revenge, just a record. Back home, I pulled out the anniversary video again, the one that had once hollowed my chest. Now I watched it like a parody. Everyone smiling, everyone cheering, everyone pretending I'd never existed. I chuckled softly. They tried to write me out. I ended up writing the next chapter. I clicked it closed. That week, I made another choice, one that surprised even me. I wouldn't rebuild the company. I wouldn't claim the ashes or try to polish what they'd cracked. That place had been built with pieces of me, yes, but it no longer reflected who I was. Instead, I opened something new. A mentorship program, small grants, seed money, office hours on Wednesdays. I named it the Ledger Fund, not after finance, but after keeping the record straight. It was for women who were told they were too ambitious, too loud, too much. The ones who were erased in meeting rooms or given credit only when they were no longer around to claim it. I received a package the day after the settlement cleared. The return address was Luther's. I opened it slowly, carefully. Inside, a simple envelope with a note dated 2 months before he passed. "If you're reading this," he wrote, "then you already know what you were always capable of. I'm sorry it took the rest of us so long." I didn't sob. I didn't curl up. I just let the tears fall, quiet and full. They weren't tears of loss. They were release. I carried his letter in my bag that Friday to the community garden ribbon cutting. We'd funded it through the Ledger's first grant. A dozen women stood before poster boards, pitching ideas, bakery co-ops, sewing workshops, a bilingual tutoring center. I watched them, all of them, strong, unafraid. A familiar face passed me in the crowd, an old colleague from marketing. She paused, Nodded. You did what most of us only dream of. I smiled. I stopped dreaming. I started documenting. As the event wrapped, I folded Luther's letter and tucked it into the back of my journal. I didn't read it again. I didn't need to. The wound isn't closed, but the scar is mine now, and it shines in sunlight. Looking back, I didn't set out to fight. I only wanted to be seen, to be acknowledged for what I had given and what was taken. But life has a way of asking, who are you when no one claps? What do you do when no one's watching? That's when the real work begins. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Silence may be heavy, but your voice is always worth using. Don't wait for someone to hand you a platform. Build your own. Document your truth. Protect your name, your ideas, your story, because no one else will do it like you can. I hope this story reminds you that justice doesn't always wear armor or carry a loudspeaker. Sometimes it sits quietly in a folder, waits patiently in the shadows, and speaks when the time is right. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever been pushed aside by the very people who were supposed to lift you up? What would you say to someone who's facing what you faced? If this video spoke to your heart, drop a 1 in the comments, or let me know where you're tuning in from. And if it didn't resonate with you, I'd love to hear why. Let's talk about it. Where are you watching this story? And don't forget, if you found meaning here, if you want more stories that echo real strength and quiet victories, subscribe to the channel. There's more to come.